Okay. My topic today is, I've variously called it psychosomatic in astrology, or the psychological roots of illness, or the emotional roots of illness. The basic subject is to look at the correspondences between the horoscope, the planets, the sky, and the physical body, our state of health. Ever since we have any records of astrology, people have tried to diagnose from the horoscope. And some people claim very high success doing this. Some doctors have been interested. A variety of different books are out treating this area. But I'm uncomfortable with most of them. Most of them jump from the situation in the horoscope, the details of the chart, this planet, this sign, this house, this aspect, to the physical condition, and they leave out the variable in the middle, which I think is where the real power is, where the answers are, where the solution is. That is the psychological state. So you have an afflicted Mars, you're liable to have headaches, sinus problems, cuts, burns, even major surgery, accidents, and so on. Now, why would Mars be associated with those things when for another person Mars is a sports champion, or a military leader, or what's the third one that's associated with Mars? A doctor, medical person, surgeon. Why would one person have all these problems with Mars and someone else would use it very successfully if Mars is doing it? You're just unlucky that you were born with a bad Mars? That's nonsense, because a lot of the people using it constructively have terrible aspects to their Mars. Or a loaded 12th house. In fact, in Gokhan's work, the most common place for Mars in all these three groups was in the 12th house. And popular astrology goes, ugh! 12th house Mars. Turns into doctors and medical, that is surgeons, and military leaders, and sports champions. Is Mars doing anything? Of course not. Mars symbolizes our ability to do what we want to do, to protect ourselves, to fight for ourselves, to defend ourselves, to assert ourselves. And if we block that ability, then we get the illnesses, we get the surgeries, we get the headaches, the sinus colds, the burns, the accidents, and all the rest of it. And if we express it out into the world, we may fight the world, and the world may fight us back, or we may just use it very constructively. So the problem with much of astrology is it jumps from the details in the chart to the details in the life, and it never looks at what's really happening there, the psychological state which is producing the details in the life. So from the beginning, so this is the view that I take, this is my belief system, that the horoscope symbolizes the psychological principle. The psychological state produces the effect in the life. And if we change the psychological state, we change the effect in the life. And every one of these psychological states has many options. We can express it out into the world in many ways. We can hold it in many ways. And that's where our choice comes in. But for a lot of people, this is done quite unconsciously. They don't know they're doing it. They wouldn't want to do it deliberately if they knew. They really are not in control of what they're doing. It just seems to be happening to them outside their own volition.
I have a question about so-called accidents.
Right.
How does that work?
It works by, if you have to assume with this, there are certain basic premises, and you have to assume those, and if they're not true, then we're wrong. But one premise is that your unconscious knows more than you do consciously. The unconscious, the water principle, is open to the world, and there's no separation and no barriers. And the unconscious knows that if you get to that intersection at that moment, another car will come and hit you. Or if you ride in the car that day with that person, you're going to get clobbered.
And how about somebody hitting you from behind?
Yeah, whatever it is.
It knows.
Theoretically, the unconscious is in touch with that. Yeah. Like the last time I got rear-ended, I stopped for a red light. And I did have to stop fairly suddenly. The car behind me thought I would go through. And when I stopped, he wasn't able to stop in time. Now, my unconscious, I'm sure, was aware, that, okay, take a chance and go through this one, because that guy's close to you. I didn't look. to see if someone was close behind me. I just saw a yellow light, red light coming, and I stopped. But I'm sure my unconscious was quite aware of that.
And in my situation with the car breaking down today,
Our own emotional state can even affect inanimate objects. We see that when we see the Uri Geller effect. That inanimate objects also are affected. And you were the one who was working with the duplicator, and as long as you concentrated on it, it went properly, and the minute you turned your attention away and stopped feeding it love and attention and approval, it quit functioning.
And that's real.
Those things do happen. One of my stories that I often tell about the mind and the Mars effect was a client who called me up one day, an appointment, and she said, I'm sorry, I just can't make it. I have to make another appointment because my car caught on fire and it burned up in the garage, just absolutely sitting there in the garage. It caught on fire, the wiring. Fire in the wiring. And I said, what are you angry about? And she said, I am angry. She said, my mother is coming out to live with me and I don't want her, but I can't say no. One other friend I know had the same thing happen to her. She was very angry about something and her car caught on fire. In another case, they call it poltergeist activity. A fire actually started in a drawer in the kitchen. And she was having this knockdown, drag-out, screaming argument with a grown son who was trampling on her rights, and she was just furious, and she said, get out, I never want to see you again. And a fire erupted in the drawer in the kitchen. Our mind has power, and of course the most immediate power is on the physical body. It's more spectacular and more amazing when it happens to outside things around us, like fires and mechanical things breaking down. But it's very obvious how it can happen in the physical body. Emotions trigger hormone releases in the body, and the hormones put stress on this system or that system. The digestion stops functioning properly, the healing process stops functioning, the immune system breaks down, and pretty soon, wow, you've had it. And the big damage, the big danger is when it's going on at the unconscious level and you don't even know it. Because as long as you're conscious, you can hope to get it out into some kind of constructive action. Hopefully you can eventually rise above it and give it to God, but still acknowledge it. The minute you say, I don't feel that way, I don't have those feelings at all. I love everybody, and everybody loves me, and everything's great and lovely in the world, and it's all fine. Wow, what happened to the body? So we first have to acknowledge the feelings and get them into consciousness, and then we can hope to begin to deal with them.
What would be an example, or how would you rise above it and give it to God?
If you can acknowledge, I'm really annoyed, really angry, I'm really frustrated, I'm really guilty, I'm really fearful, whatever the feeling is, and accept the fact that it's legitimate to feel that way, it's human to feel that way, and then all you can say is you just give it to God. And if it doesn't go away, if it doesn't resolve itself and you find you can handle the situation, then you just keep looking at it and you see, is there anything I could do about it, anything I should do about it? Because lots of times the feeling will persist because there are things you should be doing and you're not doing them. And the feeling keeps coming back and bugging you until you do something.
Like giving it to God would be just asking...
asking God to handle it for you and say you've done the best you can, and asking God to take over. But generally speaking, it does take some kind of action on our part. If we sit there totally passive and don't do something ourselves and expect God to handle all of it, it generally won't work. So it's kind of a mutual effort of us and God. We have to do whatever is within our power, and then give what's left to the higher power. So as we go through the 12 sides of life today, we're going to talk about the astrological principle, one of 12 sides of life, what that is psychologically, and what body parts are connected to that, are symbolized by that. So it's just a set of correlations, and some of them are very ancient, very traditional, and they're probably mostly okay. Some of them are my own ideas, and they're somewhat different from some of the traditions, based on personal experience, and sometimes based on logic. Must admit, I certainly haven't tested a lot of these things exhaustively, but take it all as theory to be tested, everything in astrology is a theory to be tested. So we start with the big